One of the things in all the incredible products that we have in the world of coaching, the data analytics and the video and all the stuff that we have, the one thing that gets me scared is because all of a sudden we can measure a lot of things, we start to value the things we can measure, and we stop valuing things that are hard to measure, right? And those are the things that I think make for great athletes, and those are the things that I think make for great coaches as well. Now, there's this great quote. There's an amazing book called The Inner Game of Tennis, a guy named Tim Galway, and he says, performance is potential minus interference. And so how we perform is our hours of practice and genetics and all this, minus the things that interfere with it. Right? And the single greatest thing that interferes with performance, whether I'm an athlete or whether I'm a coach, is between our ears. Right? And so we're going to start today, because it's been a long day, we're going to do a little activity. And you're all going to take part in a psychological test. And it's called the Stroop test. And the Stroop test was hypothesized in 1935, a guy named John Ridley Stroop. And what he said is when you add cognitive interference, it slows down physical reaction time of a task, okay? So we're going to do this two-part test together, okay? So, Stroop test, part 1, all right? So out loud, as a room, as fast as we can go, we're going to read all 4 lines, green, yellow, purple, red, blue, yellow, all the way to the bottom. You guys competitive? All right, I just did the National Mountain Biking Conference. They did it in 9 seconds. You think you can beat that? All right? Yeah, all right, you ready to go? Anyone need to stretch? All right, we're good. All right, so out loud as a room, as fast as we can go, all 4 lines, I'm going to time it. Ready? On your marks, get set, go. That was pretty good. We'll call it a draw. All right, not bad. You came out of the gate hot there, and then you stopped. What happened? Who else stopped? Did anyone have like someone next to them like get a little bit loud or get ahead of you? Right? This is when I do parent education, I do this, and this is when all the wives elbow their husbands. Right? So overall, though, this is a pretty interference-free environment. Right? We're able to go through it quickly. So here's Stroop test part 2. All right. These are the same words in the same font, but now instead of reading the word, you have to say the color. So blue, red, green, blue, yellow, blue. All right? You want to stretch now. All right? So out loud as a room, as fast as we can go. We just did 9 seconds with black and white. Let's see how we do this. Ready? On your mark, get set, go. So that wasn't 9 seconds. All right? So all of a sudden we throw in a little cognitive interference and it all comes crashing down. Right? I think when our kids are playing hockey, sometimes this is what it feels like when we're screaming instructions at them. It certainly feels like that when all the parents, they have 2 coaches in the bench and 32 on the other side yelling things at them. Right? But we add this cognitive interference and everything slows down. Now, raise your hand, be honest, if you quit. Thank you. Right? And we wonder why kids walk out of sports. Right? Because they're getting bombarded with just confusing information. Right? So, what I would like to do today is help you to help your athletes, help you to coach in a way so that your athletes can perform not like this, but in a better place. And I think one way we can do that is really to focus on, well, what drives them and what drives why they play. So a couple years ago, I heard this great story, interview with Jeff Bezos, and he founded Amazon. And the interviewer was asking him, he said, Jeff, Amazon's this fast-growing company, it's doing so well and everything. He goes, how do you predict what's going to change 10 years from now? what's going to be different 10 years from now, so you can invest in that and be ready for the world. And Jeff Bezos said something really interesting. He said, a lot of people ask me that question, but it's the wrong question. So the question that people should ask, and they never do, is, hey, Jeff, what's not going to change? What's going to be the same 10 years from now that it is today? Because then we can invest in our people and our time and our money in those things. And he said, so what's Amazon known for, right? He goes, we have lots of selection, we have low prices, and we have fast delivery. And he said, I can't imagine 10 years from now someone's going to say, hey, Jeff, can you hike the prices? Hey, Jeff, I ordered something and it showed up the same day. Can you slow it down? Right? That's not going to change. So we're going to invest in that stuff. We should think about sports that way as well. Instead of thinking about what's going to be different and what's moving, that stuff's important. But I think the big, most important thing is what's not going to change. Because if we invest our time and our people and our money in the things that were the same when I was growing up on Long Island, 40 years ago, to today, to my own kids who are now, 17 and 18 years old, and I've watched them grow up in sports, what's the same? And I think there's three big things. Why do they play? What they want from their coaches, and whether you like it or not, kids have parents. Right? And so if we explore these things and we're really, really aware of these things, that's when we can coach our best. That's when we can develop the best leagues and the best programs, because we're going to be aware of this thing's not going to be any different. And then when things change, we can adapt, we can move. Right? So, first one. Why do kids play hockey? What's the number one reason kids participate in sports? Fun, right? Fun. And what's really interesting is even at the highest level, when on our podcast, when we interview athletes, when we interview coaches, it's still about joy. Now, what joy or fun means might change over the years. Has anyone here ever run a marathon? Right, a couple of you, right? Mile 20 to 26. Is there any pleasure in that? No. No. But you still like running. You still get joy from running, right? So there's some interesting research about this. A woman named Amanda Visick from George Washington University asked this question of kids, why do you play? And of course they said fun, right? So she was the first one. She said, well, define fun. What brings fun? And here's fun. Trying your best, being treated with respect, getting playing time, playing well as a team, getting along with teammates, exercise, and being active. So really, a good environment, a challenging environment that's learning, team dynamics, how the coach treats you. That brings the fun out. Further down on the list, number 48, winning. Now, I've coached, so I'm not a hockey person. I should have said that, right? I've coached soccer for 30 years. I was a college and a professional player, and then I coached University of Vermont for 4 years, and then I just stopped coaching after 30 years. Now, in 30 years of coaching, there's never been 47 things more important than winning for me in that game. But maybe there is for kids sometimes. And I remember when my daughter was 10, I took her, so I live in Bend, Oregon, and I took her to her first travel soccer tournament. We're down in Portland, Oregon, and I'm just sitting there on the sideline. I'm dad, and her team loses 10-0. And I'm kind of sad and embarrassed and angry. I'm like, what am I going to say to my daughter? She just must be humiliated. This was horrible. So the game ends, and her team's walking across the field. And I walk out. I'm like, hey, Mag, how you doing? She goes, Dad, the hotel has a pool. All right, let's go swim. So I am in no way, shape, or form saying that winning is something we throw away. I'm a really, really competitive guy. I was a competitive athlete. I'm still pretty competitive to this day. My son thought he was going to beat me in golf for the first time 2 days ago, and he was up 4 strokes with 2 holes to go. And then I got in his head because I was not going to let him win. So I'm competitive, but I think, what we need to do in sports, we need to be outcome aware, but driven by process and driven by purpose. That's what we need to be as coaches, okay? So some of the things that interfere and suck the joy out of sports for many young kids as well is this, push for more, younger, and this evaluation of kids at really, really young ages. A 12-year-old boy has a 5-year developmental age swing, which means he could have the body of a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old. Now, you'd never play your 10s against your 15s, right? But that's a 12-year-old game. That's a 13-year-old game, right? And I was telling the coaches I was working with in the workshop before, like, we see this in action. Has anyone seen the Little League World Series? Right? So you watch the Little League World Series and they're like, look at this kid. He's an all-star. What a player. Home runs, striking everyone out. And I'm like, he has a mustache. Of course he is. So we have to be patient with our kids. We all know, because the original research was done in the hockey world, of this thing, relative age, right? That wherever someone is born to the arbitrary calendar cutoff date, they're far more likely to be selected or identified as gifted or talented. And the younger we make selections, the more likely we are to be wrong. And this was driven home to me over and over by amazing athletes who were not recognized young, or they were good, but they were told they couldn't make it. So when I coached soccer at the University of Vermont, there was a former UVM player there who was trying to break into the NHL. And he had been, the years I was there, he was just getting in. He was a great college hockey player, but he was small. And they said he's too small and he's not going to fit in. And he was a fourth line guy at that point, going back and forth to the minors with the Calgary Flames. But this guy was the hardest working guy I've ever met. He was the first guy in the weight room. He was the last guy to leave. He would then skate. He'd come back in the afternoon, he'd knock, because my office was right next to the weight room and the hockey rink, and he'd be like, hey, you guys want to go play some pickup soccer? You want to go for a run? You want to do something else? And day after day, he showed up and got better, right? But at 24 years old, all the smartest people in the hockey world were like, he's not going to make it. He's not good enough. His name was Marty St. Louis, right? Marty St. Louis. And I had him on our podcast a couple years ago, and he talked about this. And I said, what was it about you? And he said, I was just really good at getting better. I was good at getting better. And if you give someone the opportunity to get better long enough, they're going to get there. So as coaches, if we want to strip away that interference, we have to be patient. We have to watch them grow. And we have to focus on joy. Okay? Number 2, what do people want from coaches? Now, some of you got some sticky notes. So this is not the best room to do this activity, but I think it's so important we're going to do it anyway. And so it's going to take about 5 minutes, and I just ask us to be efficient when I try to bring you back so we can explore this. It's so important, and this is one of the best visuals you're ever going to get about coaching, right? So what I'd like you to do, if you have those sticky notes, write down, 1 per sticky note, the 5 qualities of the best coach you ever had. Right? 1 per sticky note. And, if you're like, I never had a good coach, right? The best teacher you ever had. The best boss you ever had. Right? So 1 per sticky note, the 5 qualities of the best coach. He bought me beers, not a great quality, but when you're ready, I see a couple hands coming up. This is the part that we need to go quick. And maybe you partner up with someone or whatever and you do it. We're going to take all the sticky notes that have to do with your coach's knowledge of the sport, and we're going to put them on that wall of the auditorium. And then all the sticky notes that have to do with your coach's ability to connect, to make great relationships, emotional intelligence, we're going to put them over there, okay? So partner up with someone, and if we can do like 3 minutes of sticky note sticking, then we can really get through some great stuff today. All right, so as we're taking our seats again, does anyone notice a pattern emerging? Right? And I hope you can see why this visual, to me, is so important. I've done this activity all over the world, from Manchester, England to Barcelona, Spain, from rugby to golf to hockey to